got to share a humbling moment with you from your pal Dave Kellett. Your pal Dave Kellett had a bit of a humbling moment. I'm flying home from Alaska Comics Camp yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And I get on the flight from Juneau, Alaska to SeaTac, because that's kind of like, that's the big hub out of Juneau. Everyone's got to go to SeaTac no matter where they're going in further points. You got to go to SeaTac. So I'm sitting on my flight and I'm drawing, as I often do, because I often draw pieces for eBay. This is so stupid and mercenary, but I try to make money on the flight, if that makes sense.
It just feels, it feels better. Yeah.
It feels better. Yeah, I'm like, well, I spent $300 on this flight. I'm going to make $300 from an eBay piece. So I draw an eBay piece. And the woman next to me is like, oh, what are you drawing? That kind of thing. And I said, oh, she's like, what is that? And it was one of the aliens from Drive. So, of course, it's a complete non sequitur to her. She doesn't know what the hell I'm drawing. So I explained to her, and I go, actually, this whole flight has about 40 cartoonists on it. And I said, so if this plane goes down, like 1/10 of North American cartooning wiped off the map, right? That's it. We're all gone. Like a lot of the comics that you know are gone. Yeah. And she goes, "Oh my gosh, what a sad obituary that would be." And I said, yeah. It's kind of even more humbling when I realized that I would be like 10th on that list in the mentions of that obituary. Like Dave Kellett would be like also on the flight. That would be like third paragraph of that obituary. You know, not number one, not number two, third down on that list.
Oh, that's got to be horrible to open up the obituaries and realize you got an honorable mention.
Holy shit, that's the best possible way you could have turned that joke. Oh, God, I got nothing funnier to start, so I'm going to say hello, everybody, and welcome to ComicLab, the show about making comics.
And making a living from comics. I'm Brad Guigar, the author of the Webcomics Handbook on Substack and the creator of Evil Inc.
And I'm his honorably mentioned friend, Dave Kellett, the cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of the documentary Stripped.
And this week's hour of comics advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So Dave, let's talk comics.
Let's talk comics, my friend. As always, we're going to do as much comics talk as we can squeeze into an hour. But I really want to focus in on the Alaska Comics Camp that I just returned from, because it is, in my adult life, Brad, it has become one of the most joy-filled, friendship-filled, heart-enriching and enlivening experiences that I do every year. I love it so much that I just want to sing the praises of how much I love it, if that's all right for an hour.
Well, let's start at the beginning in case I know a lot of our longtime listeners are familiar with it, but give us the overview. Like, what is Alaska Comic Camp?
Absolutely. So Alaska, as we all know, the biggest state, the gorgeous state, the lovely state to the north, 700,000 people, I think, in Alaska. Not a populous state, right? So it is still pristine as heck. And Juneau is a city in Alaska that's housing our lovely host, Pat Race, and the Alaska Robotics crew. And Pat has set up this wonderful camp just outside of Juneau. Now, Juneau is a city, Brad, that you can't drive to. To get there, you have to either fly to it or take a boat to it. And by the way, capital of Alaska. You can't get there by driving. You got to get there by either flying or taking a boat. So anyway. So Juneau, lovely town. A lot of money in Juneau is from the cruise industry, because it's one of the common stops on Alaska cruises, right? Yeah. And of course, there's fishing and mining, so it's a hub for people going to or from mines or to or from the oil fields. But Juneau itself, by Los Angeles standards, is still an incredibly pristine, clean, beautiful air, gorgeous views kind of a city. And so what Comics Camp is that once a year for 5 days now, we all fly into Juneau from all over the U.S. and Canada. And occasionally in years past, we've had folks from Mexico. We've had folks from, what's the farthest afield they've gone? Japan. We've had folks from Puerto Rico. So folks have come in from a good distance, right? Yeah. And anyway, it's about 65 to 75 cartoonists from all over North America. Descending in on Juneau. And for the first day, we do a little mini comics camp. And it's really pure and sweet. And
Like a little comic convention. You set up tables and sell books and stuff.
Yes, so we do it in the Alaska State Museum, which is gorgeous. I don't know what federal funds they got for it, but that puppy is a gorgeous museum, and it's real pretty. It's 3 levels, and so there's cartoonists on 3 levels of the museum.
Wow!
And we sign from about, I don't know, I think it's like 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So it's not a big show, but it's one of those things where it's like, if you're in Juneau and you're even kind of interested in culture, you're like, I'm going to the comics camp kind of a thing.
Yeah, because I mean, literally, there's not a lot going on. If you've got to take a boat or a plane to get there, they're not a regular stop for entertainment or anything else. So they get people coming in who are doing something even a little bit interesting, and I'm sure it's a really big draw.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. And so if you're the kind of parent where you're like, I want to expose my child to culture, you're going to bring them out.
Right.
And so there's a lot of kids, and also, when I was there this year, there were 5 cruise ships in port this year, which is the most I've ever seen. I don't know if I forgot to ask Pat if that's the maximum they can support. But anyways, 5. Yeah. There was 1 Disney ship, like 2, I don't remember the brands, but you can figure it out.
Yeah.
Anyway, a good number of people also wandered in from the cruise ships, right? And then the most joy-filled thing about it is I had people from northern parts of Alaska, because Juneau's in the south, who flew down on the Milk Run planes, which are the little like puddle jumper planes, that would traditionally have delivered milk, but now they just do little like stops in smaller towns along the way. Yeah. So I'm going to get the names wrong, but God, all the names of small towns in Alaska are so sweet. It's always like Moose Jaw or, Rabbit Hop or whatever. It's always something sweet. And so they would come down, and because if you're Alaskan and your favorite cartoonist comes to a town in Alaska, you're going to pay the $50 and fly down to go see this comics convention.
Of course.
And so anyway, the first convention was it was a 1-day thing, very sweet. And it's not a big deal. Like each one of us only had like 3.5, 4 feet of linear table, so it's not like I'm setting up my full San Diego Comic-Con booth.
Right.
But over the course of 5-6 hours, it was $750. So that adds up in terms of reimbursing for the flight and it's great. I'll take it. That's fine. And then, you couple that with an eBay drawing that you do on a flight next to a woman who's judgy about cartoonists, and you do all right.
You're kind of flush at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. But as is always the case, that's my goal and that's kind of why Pat does it. It not only brings in cartoonists to Juneau, but it gives them a chance to sort of make their money back, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And it gives the community a chance to come out and see their favorite cartoonist. And it gives kids, most importantly, a chance to see artists drawing, interact with artists, see that that's a possible life path. And so, and especially because like Raina was there this year. And so little kids just go nuts for Raina, rightly so. I mean, she's a powerhouse and is probably the single biggest force along with Dogman in cartooning right now. And so those kids were flipping out, and God, it was so cute to see. And so what was I going to say? So anyway, so it's a really pure day. The night before, we are hosted by a local, Rob, for a chili cook-off at his house with beer and wine and desserts and chili, and it's a dang delight. So we all get in, we catch up with one another. We do the show the next day, and then when the show wraps, Brad, we all get on this big Muppet bus, and we switch gears completely. So we go from being con exhibitors, to being campers. And now we drive 30 minutes outside of Juneau. Juneau, remember, a place that you famously can't drive to. You have to either fly but there are roads taking you further out into the woods. And so we go out about 30 miles out to a really sweet campground out in the woods. And when I say campground, it is actually, Brad, more like the kind of thing you would send kids to summer camp at, if you know what I mean. Okay. So there is infrastructure. There's hot and cold water. There's electrical. There is one major lodge kind of building that's long and low that can hold about, we had 65, 75 cartoonists in there, but it probably could have held another 20 or so. But anyway, that's where we do all the meals. That's where we do our main meetings. That's where we do a lot of the gathering and the card playing and the drawing at night. And so that's the main lodge. And then scattered around the lodge are about 5 to 6 1 to 2 story log cabins, each of which have heat and some of them have running water, and they usually have 8 to 15 beds. I think 15 is probably the highest number of beds in one of them. So, but they also, it's not like it's not lap of luxury. It's it's your log cabin sleeping. So it's perfectly fine. You set the the one thing, I'll be honest, I'm not a young man anymore, Brad. And when at 3 a.m. when I have to pee, can I tell you that my one downside to camp, one downside is you can't just get up and pad to the bathroom and like back into bed, right? You have to plan. You're like, all right, how badly do I have to pee? Pretty badly. All right, it's 3 a.m. So it's going to be about 10 degrees outside. All right, so I'm going to get my pants back on, get some shoes back on, get a sweater back on, get a coat back on, walk outside, make sure there's no bears on my way outside to the bathroom, because that's like my worst fear is like I'm by myself, no one hears me go to the bathroom, and they're like, bear mall. All right, well, Dave had a good run. He died as he lived, peeing at 3 a.m., that kind of thing.
Yeah, because that is the thing. I remember previously you and Malky had a runner going about doing a Stan Lee impersonation, because the whole thing is if you do see a bear is to be loud. Yeah, well, I mean, listen, if it's a brown bear, you're gonna get worked over. But if it's a black bear, you stand a chance that if you get big and raise your arms above your head, and you let them be aware of your presence. So you're like, hey bear, hey bear. So Malky and I had this joke a couple of years back where, as though Stan Lee were at camp with us, we're like, oh, this has been a fantastic day. I really appreciated drawing with you all. This is great. Old Stan's having a great time here at camp. Anyway, time for old Stan to hit the hay. So I'm gonna, and then he hits the creaky door on the way out, and immediately like, hey bear, oh God, nobody eat old Stan. I've been working on the Fantastic Four. I don't need to be eaten. Oh God, hey bear. So it says but. The few times that I would walk back to my cabin at 1 or 2 a.m. by myself, Brad, I will admit I'm not a brave man, Brad. No.
I'm not a brave man.
No, you sprint, I would imagine.
No, but you know what I did? I dragged my feet a lot, like crunch, crunch, crunch across like foresty floor to make more noise. And I was like, oh, I'm walking in the forest and I'm singing and I'm singing and I'm walking in the forest. I'm going to be honest, Brad, not my proudest moment.
No.
Not my proudest moment.
No.
Like I wish you could have seen me at 2 a.m. There's, the fog coming out of my mouth. And I'm like, oh, I'm walking through the forest and I'm lightly singing and I'm crunching my feet because I'm a city boy and I don't want to be eaten. And then on the trip home later, Pat was telling me about a deer hunter who she got attacked by a brown bear, and I guess I didn't know this. A brown bear's skull is thick enough where if you take a shot at their head, it will most likely bounce off their skull.
Wow!
But if you shoot directly at their nose, it will go right up into their brain, right? And so that's the shot you want to take. Anyway, she missed. The brown bear got her by the head, shook her around like a rag doll. The other deer hunters took the bear down. They got her back into town. She's fine, but she had a bear tooth embedded in her skull. And I was like, for A, that's an amazing story. B, I would, for the rest of my life, wear that tooth on a necklace around my neck. Yeah. Being like, I got to tell you, I have a story for you.
Yeah. Hey, let me tell you where this tooth used to be. Right here.
Feel this divot above my ear. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh,
but anyway,
my God.
so I am not a brave man when it comes to bear.
No.
I was like,
nor should you be when it comes to bear. You should be a little bit, terrified of what might happen.
And, the Alaskans are very sweet, and they're like, I think if I'm remembering the advice right, they're like, listen, if it's a brown bear, your best bet is to play dead. If it's a black bear, there's a chance, depending on where they are in their life cycle, that they might be more afraid of you than you are of them.
Yeah.
And in my heart of hearts, I was like, there is no effing way that bear is more afraid of me than I am of them.
That's a real sliding scale there.
I'm actively pooping my pants if I see a bear. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So anyway, back to the campground. There are a couple of built-in facilities around the thing, like large 30-person fire pits, or activity like not rug pulls, rope pulls.
We put a bunch of NFTs up, get people to buy them, and then we yank the servers.
And then you do the old rug pull. Yeah, no, there's rope pulls, there's activities and stuff like that around. And but for Dave Kellett, the joy of the weekend for me, and I think we did 4 days there. So it's 1 day of the mini con and then 4 days at camp.
Yeah.
And it honestly, Brad, the great joy of it is there's no internet out there because you're far enough away.
Yeah.
You can hike to a beach if you want, and you get a little signal, and you could maybe send a text or download one video that Brad sends you of him smiling and waving, that kind of thing. But for the most part, there's no internet. And I'll be honest, in my adult life, it is the most joy-filled thing to be separated from the internet for 4 days.
Yeah. Just and not to have a choice. It's not
to have a choice.
You're just like, you can't even be tempted by something that's literally not there.
Yeah. I realized for the first time in months, I put away my phone for like 3 active days. I eventually pulled it back out to take photos of something, but I just put it away for 3 days. And when you don't have that, I mean, there's no solution that I can offer here because we all need and use our phones and all that sort of stuff. But it's so healing to not have a phone on you and not need a phone or use a phone. Everything you need is right there in terms of friendship, in terms of community, in terms of food, in terms of resources.
Yeah.
So there's no... It's like this, Brad. The best way I can describe it for those that lived through it is it's like being transported back to 1994. And you're like, oh, that's right. This is how we used to live before phones. It was lovely. It was lovely.
Oh, my gosh. I'd love that. That would be worth the price of admission alone. Just to have that opportunity to declench. Decompress.
Oh my God, declench. Yes. That's exactly what until a bear comes along, Brad.
Yeah, and then you're clenched right back up, I'm sure. But it sounds like kind of a great, I didn't realize 50 or 60 cartoonists out there. I mean, this must be an opportunity to get to know an awful lot of people that maybe you weren't so familiar with before and to reconnect with people that you've seen at the camp in years past.
Yeah, I mean, it is, I know that I'm going to sound happy clappy when I say this, but it is the most enriching thing that I do all year long, even more so than the National Cartoonist Society, even more so than San Diego Comic-Con. I come away from this camp, honest to God, I know it sounds happy clappy, but I come away with a full heart.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, oh, this is the way people are supposed to live. This is the kind of community settings that we are supposed to have as social creatures, not this false parasocial digital intermediary thing. It's like you're genuinely talking to people, you're learning about their life. And again, like you said, it was old friends that I've known for decades, and new friends that I just met. And what's great about this comics camp, and this is a huge tribute to Pat, is that it is welcoming to all cartoonists from all stages of their career. Yeah. So you could have some cartoonists who have written multiple New York Times bestsellers who are there. And you'd have cartoonists who were in their 3rd year of cartooning undergraduate school. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so there's a full gamut of skills and life experiences. But honestly, it's not a one-way street that the older cartoonists are just teaching the younger cartoonists. It's a two-way street. And it's very equalizing in a way because you're all there. You're all experiencing the same thing. You all are cold as you go out to pee at 3 a.m. You know what I mean? You're
the all great equalizer.
Yeah, you're all helping with the dishes in the kitchen. You're all helping with the food prep. You're all helping teach classes to one another. So there were classes that were taught by 22-year-olds, and there were multiple Eisner winners and New York Times bestsellers in the audience listening attentively and learning from that 22-year-old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because not all of us are good at every aspect of cartooning. So, for example, Brad, there was a class being taught by, you know what? One thing I should mention, just put a pause on the conversation.
Right.
The camp runs under Chatham House rules. I should mention that, which is an old, rich Victorian billionaires basically made this rule that you can talk about what was said, but you can't attribute it. Does that?
Right.
So, and that way you sort of push forward the knowledge, but you don't put anyone on the spot in terms of what was said. So I do have to be a little bit careful in terms of who was there and what they said. But let's just put it this way. A comics educator was there and was very good with brushwork. And so they taught a class on how to ink with brush.
Yeah.
And I, who have done a little bit of brushwork, and other people who have brushed entire Eisner Award-winning books and New York Times bestselling books, were also in the audience. And we all learned, and we were all thankful, because it's this sort of paying it forward to one another that we do with these classes. I did a class. I don't know that I'm allowed to say who else taught it with me, but I did a class on writing story and how to think of story and tricks on how to get started on a story. And the other two authors who were on the panel with me were also doing the same. And so, and that's the kind of thing you do. There were other ones about how to be a cartoonist and a parent. That was one of the panels.
That would be fun.
A parent or a caregiver, because we're all like dealing with our parents getting older kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There were panels on financial stuff. There were panels on doing specifically children's books, like picture books for little kids. And from a wonderful author. We had a Pulitzer Prize winner come to camp on day 3 and talk about her experience and as an author. That was really fun. So the nice thing about camp is that it's not just the camaraderie and the friendship and, hey, we're all here in camp together, but there are on any given day about 12 classes being taught by other fellow pros.
Yeah.
And it's extraordinary because unlike at San Diego Comic-Con, where Brad, let's be honest, if you and I do a ComicLab panel, it's supposed to pay forward what we know. Let's be honest. We do actively try to pay forward what we know. But when it's at Comic-Con, we can also be honest that it's a little bit promotional, just between you, me, and the wall. You know what I mean? We're not idiots. It serves two purposes. It pays forward what we know, but it's also promotional. But at camp, the best way I can describe it is there's no ulterior motive. We're all there in jeans and muddy boots. No one's putting on airs. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I'm teaching you what I know. I hope it's of use to you. Am I setting myself up as the perfect arbiter of how to do this thing? Absolutely not. But here I'm going to pass along what I know. And frankly, at the end, at the Q&A session, you may have better answers than I do, and let's share it in camp. So what I'm getting at is it's very altruistic. It's very pure. It's very Socratic. If you think about the old Socrates' way of teaching, that you just want to find the best answer. You don't necessarily have to have the answer come from you as the teacher. So I find it really pure. You would love this aspect of it.
That part, I mean, you've been with me as we've gone to different events like this, like the annual NCS conference or different comic conventions or what have you. And that's the stuff I really like. And the stuff that I'm like kind of passionate about is to sit and listen to somebody who really knows what they're talking about, or conversely, something that they're super passionate about. Doesn't mean if they're the end all be all expert, but they're passionate about it. Right. And to sit and listen to them talk about that passion, that I can do all day long. And then, in the evening, I have this image of a bunch of people breaking up. I'm sure there's people who are into board games. There's got to be a table of people playing poker. I guarantee you there's some poker players there. And if there's enough people from Michigan, you're going to have the euchre table over on the side. And that's the kind of things that as you're doing stuff like that, there's table talk, there's chatter going on, there's jokes going back and forth. That sounds like it would be kind of one of the happiest parts of the whole event. Is those informal times when people break into groups. Oh,
it's delightful. The other thing that we play constantly, although this year we did it less so, is cartoonist telephone picture. What's that? What's that called? I forget what it's called.
Well, like you draw, and I don't know, Pictionary?
No, it's like telestrations, but there's another street word for it that I forget. It's like picture, telephone picture. Oh my God. I can't believe I'm forgetting what it's called. But if I say telestrations, you know what it is. Like
that sounds right.
You write a sentence and then the next person only sees the sentence. So they draw a picture describing the sentence. And then the next person only sees the image. They don't see the previous sentence. So then they have to write a sentence describing the image.
And it goes sentence, image until finally you get to the last person, you compare sentences.
And it becomes utter nonsense. And we laugh so hard as you're revealing them. It's really fun. And so we play that. Dave, I don't think he'll mind, even though I just broke Chatham House rules. David Malky runs a session every year about creating a game from nothing. Right.
Yeah.
And so,
boy, who better to talk about that?
Dave's great.
He's really good at games.
Dave, who's done, I think at this point, 5 to 10 professional games, both for his stuff and for other companies, but also just an incredibly inventive, fun guy. So, thanks to Dave's tutorship, we came up with a game called it's called Dermans in der Club, and it was named after it's you have to play the game as though you're the Swedish chef. That's part of the rules.
That was going to be my guess.
So instead of saying diamonds in the club, you have to say Dermans in der Club, and so it became this whole involved game where you would lose points and or be out if you didn't scream out Dermans in der Club at the times where you were dealt a Dermand in der Club. And anyway, it's a game that honestly, if Dave wanted to further develop it, I would help him with it because I think we could make a couple $1,000 selling this thing. It was really fun. And but that kind of bullshit, it's not bullshit, it's joy. Like you're using your creativity in new and interesting ways. And so you got 8 people around a table and you're like, all right, this game doesn't exist yet, but here's the basic rules. And within an hour, you figured out a better way to play it. And then the next morning at breakfast, people will be like, okay, as I was falling asleep last night, I thought about new ways we could iterate on the game. And then you play it again that night, and it's even better, right? And so you see games being developed in real time around the camp. So last year we came up with a game called Cholera Man, which was about a war fighting game where cholera would come at unexpected times. And the bit that I came up with last year was you had one person at the table who would wear the hat of the Cholera Man, but he was like this kind of Welsh pirate voice, so it'd be like, "Oh, no one expects the Cholera Man. No, cholera comes for us all. That's right. Oh yes, the Cholera Man comes. Oh, I see you're fighting a war. Well, guess what's coming? A little bit of cholera, like that kind of thing." So that was last year's game, as we came up with a card game called Cholera Man.
And this would have been a character from Wales.
Yeah, well, that sort of Welsh pirate voice of like, "Arr," like I'm a pirate, I'm from Wales, Arr. And so it made no sense because the game started out being, I think, French Continental Wars, and then but suddenly this Welsh pirate would come in as the Cholera Man. It made not a lick of sense, but goddamn, it was enjoyable. And so this year, the game we came up with was Diamonds in der Club, Dermans in der Club, and so you would get dealt, anytime you got dealt a diamond, you had the whole table had to say Dermand.
Oh, they're laid face up.
Yeah. And so then when someone would get dealt a club, they'd go Club. And then when you got a specific card, you had to scream Dermans in der Club, because it's a longer story than you need. But anyway, it was tremendous fun because it was so stupid. Yeah. And but that's the kind of thing you do at night. And then there were
yeah, you wouldn't do something like this in broad daylight.
I would hide my shame. No, but like we did things like there were campers that built a 10-foot by 15-foot cardboard castle, and like with a working parapets and like a drawbridge and stuff. And we're like, holy hell, look at you guys over in the corner. And then because you know what it is, it's just like there's no internet. It's incredibly creative people. You've got to fill 5 days. And so then another group of cartoonists were like, we're going to build a marble run. And you're thinking to yourself, a marble run? When was the last time you saw somebody building a marble run? Right. But they must have put like 5 or 6 hours into this damn thing. But the best part of the marble run is it's 65, 70 creative people. So it's not just like, hey, let's run some marbles down this. Everybody picked a marble, but then, Brad, they gave them a backstory. So
that's great.
My marble's name was Petit Charles, and he had everything to gain and nothing to lose, And really, he was putting all his heart out on the field because his brother's been going through some tough times. So this is really this win is for his brother. And Petit Charles came in second place in the finals. That's the only reason I mentioned that. Petit Charles did a great job. We're all really proud of Petit Charles.
That was a small victory for Petit Charles.
Yeah. He left everything on the field. But you see what I'm going with that, though. It wasn't just a marble run. Because we're creative people, we invested it with a story, which is kind of like what we did with Dermans in the Club. And it just makes it better, Yeah. Because the whole backstory was the Swedish chef was trying to develop a diamond mine on Mars. That's what the backstory of Dermans in the Club was. It makes no goddamn sense, but it was so fun.
No, it does not.
Anyway, so over the course of the 5 days, you teach classes to one another, but there's also, as happens in a small community where you are isolated, but you're having a shared response, the walls kind of break down in terms of what people will share. And so you get sometimes incredible career advice that you never would get otherwhere. But you also get like personal stories from like, listen, the reason why I did this book is blankety blank, and my cousin was dying and I did it for my cousin. And it's for real, you know what I mean? In terms of like So you get to know these artists on a much deeper level. As my wife would say, like, relationships are like an onion, and she always says, like, you get to the deeper center core of the onion. You know, some people you only get to the outer skin, and some people you get a couple skins in. We got really deep on the onion in terms of friendship, and I don't know, Brad. I just can't say enough good things about it. It's so pure. It is so joy-filled. It's such a friendship-filled week in Alaska. And one of my big goals, I'll be honest, is to get my best friend Brad Guigar in there and enjoying the hell out of it.
One of my goals is to get out there one of these days. Every year I say the same thing. My God, that sounds like so much fun. I gotta go. It sounds like a great time. And probably that last day when you're all, going your separate ways is probably kind of bittersweet. Right? Because I'm sure there's a lot of, we'll keep in touch, and you probably have a whole lot of new contacts that you didn't have before, just because now you've had actual conversations with these people.
Oh, absolutely. It's like I said, you go deeper on the onion on that, but you also, you get a sense of people in person, up close with day-to-day living that you never would get, even at the NCS Rubin weekend, which you and I love.
Yes.
Because you're washing dishes right next to them, or you're chopping tomatoes before dinner, or you're hiking, these gorgeous vistas that you would never see at home, or you're sleeping in a cabin, or peeing at 3 a.m. at 10 degrees outside. And so it's all the shared life experiences that you, in 5 days, you've snapped into friendship in a way that would have taken you months or years of shared experiences to snap into, And so I know that my friend Brad Guigar would love it. I think you would love 90% of it. 10% of it, I do think 10% of it you would think was a little too happy clappy for your taste. And I'll be honest, even your pal Dave Kellett gets a little teary-eyed about this or that when I'm there, because I dropped the guard, and I'm like, listen, this part of my career is hard, and this part is not that hard, and this I'm happy to share about, and this I'm a little sad about, and this I'm really teary about. And so I dropped my guard, and I can think the Midwestern part of you would be like, well, listen, we don't need to get teary. We can share what we know. We don't need to get teary. But it happens. It happens with a lot of us. And you might be surprised what friends in your life that you know that have gone to comics camp have gotten real teary by day 5, where they're like, I'm willing to open up and share some of the harder parts of my career. And so it's very pure. It's very sweet. And I should say, for those that are considering that, I cannot recommend it enough. The applications are in the fall. I usually try to tell ComicLab listeners when it's open. And I will say that there are also scholarships available for the camp. If you are at a place in your career where, because we've all had years where we're flush and years where we're not so flush. And so if you are at a point in your career where, like, maybe you're a student and you're in grad school for animation or cartooning, and you can't really make a big swing of paying for Alaska, there are scholarships available for the camp. So I would highly recommend, no matter where you are in your career, applying and seeing what happens, and then being honest with Pat and the Alaska Robotics crew, being like, I'm so sorry, I don't think I can afford it, because they might be able to step up and be like, we've got 4 scholarships available this year, and you can have one of them, that kind of thing. So, which, by the way, is a lovely thing that they do. They also do a really good outreach for Alaska local artists who are, if not cartoonists, cartooning adjacent. So it's either textile painters, illustrators, sometimes photographers, because they also add to the overall well-being of the camp. They have local knowledge, local experience. They can teach us textiles, photography, illustration, and then they also get the benefit as folks that live in a state with 700,000 people, some of the world's best artists teaching them coming into their camp. So it's a lovely exchange of knowledge and friendship and regional skills. So I can't say enough good things about it, Brad. It's a lovely, lovely life experience, and it's one of the best things I think happening in comics right now. I hope Pat continues to do it for decades to come. I will keep doing it into my 70s. And being increasingly troubled by peeing at 3 a.m. out in the cold.
Well, you got to really give it to Pat for putting this whole thing together for so long. Like, Pat's been doing this for years and years, and it's got to take a commitment and an awful lot of energy and organizational skills to keep this going. And you've got to really hand it to him for doing this on behalf of the comics community, because I don't think you're the only one that feels this way. There's a lot of people that clearly show up year after year after year, and kind of kudos for him for being a leader in the community.
Absolutely. It's something really special, and it's a unique mix of physical isolation, internet isolation, unique experience. By that I mean, like, it's not like some hotel room that we're all staying in at the,
Right.
like some version of a Ramada Inn that we've all stayed in. It's a completely new and different environment. We're all chipping in on all the tasks. We're all self-starters in terms of teaching the classes to one another. We're completely with one another for 24 hours a day for 5 days straight. And so you combine all those together and something really magical happens in a way that, like, even the NCS Rubin weekends, it doesn't happen because there's not a shared experience. It's not isolated. And so there's something really unique. So yeah, I give all credit to Pat for this. And for Kazu Kibuishi, who also apparently nudged Pat towards starting it way back when, 9 or 10 years ago. Yeah, because Kazu came up to Juneau. He said, this is such a unique place. You should maybe consider having a bunch of folks up. And so, and I am so thankful to Dylan McConas and Katie McConas for nudging me to go those 5 or 6 years ago. I think I've been to 5 of these now. And I think there's been 9 comics camp. So for those of you that are worried, like, well, what am I walking into? They've got it down. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They've worked out all the kinks. It's still, it's still a work in progress. Every year is better, and every year they try out different stuff. But God, I can't say enough good things about it, Brad. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Hey, gang, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we'll tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
Yeah, because when you do, you'll get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on ComicLab topics.
And you'll get access to our exclusive Discord server, a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And ho Nelly, if you want even more comics goodness in your life, check out the new drawing show that we're doing with our pal Kevin McShane over at wrongwayshow.com. That's wrongwayshow.com.
In each episode, we'll show you how to draw your favorite cartoon characters the wrong way.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics.
Ooh, do you hear that? That can only mean one thing. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare your chakras and center your vibes, because entering the ComicLab studio on a radiant beam of self-belief and highly flammable essential oils, it's the one and only Susan MacTaggart.
Oh, Bradley John, good to see you. Good to see you, Bradley John. How are you doing?
It's good to see you, Susan. You're looking well.
Well, and I see you have one of your t-shirts that can only be described as prophylactic. Not one of your better shirts, Bradley. What is this that we're wearing?
My Martin's Specialty Sausage t-shirt. I'll have you know that I get my bratwurst at 10% off at Reading Terminal Market when I'm wearing this little baby.
Oh, Bradley, it's good to see you make your fashion decisions based on discounts on sausages, Bradley. That's when you know a man is ruled by high fashion, when he makes his decisions based on 10% off bratwurst and sausages.
So, Susan, I'm told that you have a personal affirmation for one of our $10 ComicLab listeners.
Oh, yes, Bradley, as it's always the case, I'll have to do a little affirmation here at patreon.com/ComicLab for the $10 backers of Bradley John. And Bradley John, who do we have a personal affirmation for today this week?
Today's personal affirmation goes out to Chris Bays.
Chris Bays! Chris Bays, Christopher. Can I call you Christopher? It's so formal and delightful. Christopher, I want to tell you, I have a little affirmation just for you, my little sugar plum fairy. This is it, Christopher. Your talent is undeniable. It's undeniable, Christopher. Unless you're the one denying it, in which case, stop that, Christopher. Stop it.
Stop denying yourself, Christopher.
Stop that, Christopher. And Bradley, before I go, Bradley John, I just want to say, look for my new book, Affirmations for Artists, because therapy is still out of network. The new book from Susan MacTaggart and Random House Publishing. Look for that coming out in 3 weeks. at your local Barnes & Noble. And Bradley, John, I'm excited to see you next week when I see what new shirt for new food discounts you bring in this week. Okay, Bradley, John, hugs and kisses to everyone. We'll see you next week.
There she goes, vanishing into a cloud of sandalwood and raw ambition. Thank you, Susan MacTaggart, for another soul-fortifying affirmation and for reminding us all that success is just a vision board away, assuming you don't get bored of your vision.
Well, Brad, walking back in, I hear the end of the vision board thing. That was nice, Brad. I got to say, we do have another update mid-show for everybody, which is that Brad and I will be doing our now annual, I guess. It's our third annual ComicLab live stage show at the NCS Rubin Award weekend. This is the NCS conference, National Cartoonist Society conference, that's taking place August 14th, 15th, and 16th in Boston, Massachusetts. You can go to nationalcartoonist.com to go to the conference. Brad and I cannot say enough nice things about it. We have such a dang good time there. We laugh for 3 solid days. And honestly, I think the live stage show is one of the highlights of our years for ComicLab.
It really is. It's a chance to not only to do the show live, but to get to, talk to some of our favorite people, get really into the weeds in topics that maybe we wouldn't get a chance to otherwise. And also just, kind of have fun screwing around on stage with some very creative, happy people.
Absolutely.
And it has not failed to deliver fantastic moments and happy memories. And I'm looking forward to doing it all again.
And if you're at a stage in your career where you would like to do sort of the meet and greet with the other peers and professionals that you have looked up to, the NCS Rubin Weekend is a delightful spot for that. Some of the Brad and my favorite conversations with our heroes have taken place at a Rubin Weekend. Like the famous time where I thought that Jim Davis knew my name, and Brad pointed out that he knew my name because I had a name tag on. Like a dipshit. I still grit my teeth when I think, oh, Jim remembered me. Jim knew my name. No, you had a big name tag on that said DAVE on it. That's why
it was hanging around your neck. Yeah. Well, listen, you also got a chance to say that you talked to Jim Davis again. You do have that.
Oh, yeah. And so August 14th, 15th, 16th, Boston, Massachusetts. Put it on your calendar and head over to nationalcartoonist.com to join us for the live stage show of ComicLab Live.
All right, Dave, we've got a question from one of our ComicLab listeners over at patreon.com/ComicLab, and it goes like this. This one coming in from Lindsay, who says, "Hello, comics uncles. I am in need of your best rejection stories if you got them. I've recently put myself out there for a few community-based comic submissions, one online and one local. Both had judges of professionals from the comics industry, one with editors and agents and other with comics artists. I didn't make the cut for either. I know my work is good, but maybe because these rejections were so close together, it's hitting me harder than I would like. What did you guys do in the earlier days of your comics careers when faced with rejections to help bounce back? Thanks very much for the show. It's my favorite thing to listen to while I draw." So, Dave.
Oh, boy, Lindsay, I can tell you, first of all, my friend, you are not alone. The idea of internalizing rejection or internalizing imposter syndrome, that like everybody else has it figured out and you do not, or everybody else is worthy and you are not. That is a truth universal for all artists, and especially for Brad, I think.
Oh my God, you suckered me in on that one. I didn't see that coming.
I mean, no, Brad, first of all, just before we answer this question, though, am I wrong that that this is a truth universal? I mean, Schultz in his dying days still had imposter syndrome. Miyazaki still has imposter syndrome. And so the idea that rejection hurts is a truth universal for artists.
Yeah. But I'll underline everything you said there. Absolutely. That's something everyone deals with. But let's share some rejection stories, Dave, from our earlier days. Okay. Well, it was just, I think.
How about last week? Is that
early? How about 7 days earlier when I found out I didn't get nominated for the Eisner again? Is that early enough for you, Lindsay? How about 7 days earlier than that when old Uncle Brad, having put in work in 3 different categories, count them, 3, found out he didn't get a sausage on the NCS Divisional Awards, the Silver Rubens. No, and yeah. So here's what we got to talk to you about, and it also helps. The one thing I did that made this whole thing easier to take, and yeah, I mean, the first thing we tell you all the time is, awards don't mean anything. But listen, I'd like to be on that list a whole lot more than I'd like to not be on that list.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah,
I
let's
want
be
to be
honest.
on that list. And I was on it before. And so I'm like, I know I can do it. I know my work is good. How come I'm not on the list this year? And the one thing I did that really helped me out, once I got involved with the NCS, I got involved in jurying the awards. What they do is they send different categories to different geographical chapters of the NCS. And they kind of are the first round of deciding who's good enough or whose work they want to promote to go on to the next level.
And basically that's just to distribute the workload, just because there's so many submitted pieces that they're like, well, let's geographically split it up so that this group will handle comic strips, this group will handle single panel, this group will handle comic books. And it's just a way to lighten the load for everybody. It's a little Amish barn raising.
Yes. But what I found out, what you learn from that is that, and you can see from the people that were selected for those nominations, if one category had gone to a different group of judges, there would have been a completely different group of nominees.
Yes, that's
and
true.
That's not to say, really quick, before it gets misunderstood, that's not to say that the nominees that were chosen weren't chosen for good reasons.
Right.
It's just that another group of judges are gonna see a whole new group of subjective qualities that they like in comics, and they're going to put another group of nominees out.
I will say, because I have also juror a Reuben Award a couple years ago, and it's the best way I could describe it, Lindsay, is that you see that it's sort of the butterfly effect. That one conversational turn, I saw someone go from being absolutely nominated to being like, no, let's nominate this other person instead, because of a conversational turn that happened from one person saying a thing that developed into a whole conversation. And but to Brad's point, it's not like the nominees that were or were not included were not worthy. Frankly, all of them were putting in stunning work.
Sure.
It literally just was the subjectivity of human hearts doing their best, trying to come to a solution or an answer as to who should be nominated. But again, to Brad's point, put it in front of 5 other people, and again, with all good intentions, they would have just picked a completely different slate of nominees.
Yep. And not only that, but even in the Philadelphia chapter, we're looking at our group, and this one comes up, and it was not to my taste at all. Right. And for a lot of reasons, it doesn't matter. Everybody's got their taste. The person sitting next to me says, "Oh, I love this person's work." And I turned around. I said, "What?" And they said, "Well, because of this and because of that and because of this." And they had a whole different criteria of what they considered good
work. Yeah.
And it wasn't that mine was better. I think mine is better. But then again, there's a lot more people in the world than just me. This other person had perfectly good reasons too. And the point is, we both looked at that. One person said that was great work. The other person said not so much.
Not so much.
And, we all made our votes. Everything came out in the wash, and the nominees were the nominees. Again, a whole different group of judges, a whole different group of nominees.
Right.
So you can't. Here's the only thing that you got to take away from all this is that you can't let your self-worth be determined by a lottery.
And that's also true, by the way, when you're being hired for a job or being considered for a position or being asked potentially to do work for hire but don't get it. Is that in its own way, writ small, that's also a lottery, because had a different person been in that job or a different decision maker making that job, you might have gotten the position. So to Brad's point, Brad is 100% right. You can't allow someone else to dictate your happiness and your contentedness with the art you're creating. based on that one momentary position of power that they have over you in either judging or hiring or, that kind of stuff. So just a huge cosign for what Brad is saying right there.
Yeah. Just to wrap this topic up, having gone through that, I actually have a lot different kind of attitude towards entering contests. I'll just tell you, just so you will all know when I most likely don't get nominated. For the first year, I put my comic in for the Ignatz Award because it's indie comics, and doggone it, I should be considered at least an indie comics artist. I don't think there's any jury in the world, because you see what the Ignatz Awards really leans towards a certain thing. But having gone through all that, I'm like, screw it. Let them tell me no instead of me telling me no by not submitting. And if I don't get it, it's not going to make a damn bit of difference to me, because at the end of the day, this is all a little bit random. It's a little bit random. Mind you, it's great when it happens, and you have every right to feel fantastic if and when it happens, because of course you should, right? But you also can't sit there and let your self-worth be determined by that. And so, Lindsay, don't let this get under your skin. You're still a good artist. You're fantastic. I've seen your work, Lindsay. You're fantastic. Just keep doing your thing. If you want to enter the next contest, enter the next contest. We should. Oh my God! You want to hear a left turn? Maybe it's a good thing you didn't win.
That's what. Okay, so can I talk about that for a second? Because
that just hit me as I was talking.
I was going to mention an earlier rejection that hit me far worse in my career that actually turned out to be one of the greatest blessings in disguise I ever got. Which is Lindsay, and maybe I could speak for my friend Brad here, but I won't right off the cuff because I might not be speaking for him. So when I was in my teens and my 20s, all I ever wanted, Lindsay, was to be a syndicated cartoonist in a newspaper.
Yes.
That's all I wanted to do. I every path that I took in academia, in my job choices, in my cartooning choices, was all, like, in my mind, was a stepping stone towards getting towards syndication. And so when I think United Media and then Washington Post Syndicate and then Creator Syndicate and then a Universal Press Syndicate, when they all turned me down multiple times, by the way, over multiple submissions, I took it really hard. But the truth is that those rejections were among the best things to ever happen to me, because I would have been miserable and, frankly, on a much harder path had I gotten syndicated. I don't know that was the happier path for a lifelong cartooning career for Dave Kellett.
No.
I mean, I see a lot of my peers that got syndicated around the same time, and they're all looking over at what Brad and I do and be like, how do I get out of this? How do I transition over to this or to YA graphic novels, because syndication ain't working anymore. So honestly, Lindsay, Brad and I as friends, what we will do is when we get rejected, we'll often call and just... It's the saucier conversations that we ever have. Let's put it that way.
Listen, I'm not going to say that I'm not going to say that one of us goes on a 20-minute screed bad-mouthing the people that did make the list, and Dave sits and listens politely, but that might be what happens every now and again. Sure. There might be a fair degree of good-natured shit-talking, but no, and really, all kidding aside, yeah, you get 24 hours. My wife and I always say when something like this happens, you get 24 hours to pout and feel shitty and say horrible things about people, and then you got to go back and start doing your stuff. You can't let it get into you, get into your psyche.
Yep.
But I'll go one step further than what you were just saying, because both of these contests that Lindsay's talking about sounds like contests that I don't want people necessarily to win.
Oh, interesting. What do you mean?
Kind of contests that very often, if you look in the terms of service or in the rules with that contest, there's an awful lot of contests out there that if you win, you give over creative property, you give over IP. There was a big contest in the early days of webcomics that seemed to me to be a big intellectual property grab because of the way the terms of service were written. There's a lot of contests that I would just as soon see you, A, not enter in the first place. And if you don't win it, you dodged a bullet.
Yep.
Before you get too upset, Lindsay, take another look at those terms of service, those the contract that you signed when you joined the contest, and maybe congratulate yourself on not winning, because there's a lot of contests. I don't want you to win. I don't want you to enter in the first place, but I certainly don't want you to win.
Agreed. The clause that says you win, which means we get your work, is the one you want to avoid. Anyway, but the thing I was getting at before too, with Brad and I making the phone call where we get saucy for 24 hours and then we go back to work, is the thing that we always return to as friends in our conversation is the true victory in cartooning is, listen, I'm not saying I wouldn't want an Eisner. I would love an Eisner. Don't get me wrong. I'm an ego-driven human as much as the next person. I would love an Eisner. I'll say that out loud until my dying day. I'm just saying it out loud. But the true victory is to keep cartooning. Did I do it for another year? That's the victory.
Yes.
Because, Lindsay, there's so many people that won an Eisner in a year where I did not. You know what I mean? Like, I got nominated, they got nominated, they won, I did not win. But I'll look at 6 years on and they're back to working at not Domino's, but some sort of emotional equivalent. Right. And I'm still cartooning. So it's like, I'll take the win of having a functioning career over an award that rejects me every day. Yep. To be the sort of gravitas comic that might win an award, but then you can't make a living from it, or you have to stop it 2 years from now because people stopped reading it. Yeah. That's not the path I want to walk. I want to be a cartoonist until I'm old and gray, or at least can pay enough to not have to pee outside at 3 a.m. when it's 10 degrees. I don't know where that was going, but anyway, I lost the thread there. But you get what I'm saying here is that the true victory that Brad and I often turn back to is that I'm still cartooning, and Lindsay, you're still cartooning. Yes. And so the rejection hurts, the rejection stings. Let it hurt, let it sting for 24 hours, then back to the drawing board, because getting back to it is how you truly win.
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes you got to know when to get in there and get nasty and mean, and then you got to know when to let it all go and say, okay, I'm done with this. I'm going to go back to comics. Speaking of which, I'm done being nasty and mean for another week here on ComicLab, so I guess it's time for me to say you've been listening to ComicLab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been my friend Brad Guigar, the editor of webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc. at evilcomic.com, and the co-host of the fantastic new drawing show over at wrongwayshow.com. That's wrongwayshow.com.
And my good friend Dave Kellett, the co-director of Stripped, and the cartoonist of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com, and Drive at drivecomic.com, and another one of the very handsome co-hosts along with our friend Kevin McShane.
I said OTE.
Over at thewrongwayshow.com.
You know what? I know this is me talking through the credits, but Kevin would also love the comics camp.
Yes.
He would love it.
Yes.
My God, he's the perfect personality for it. I got to get him. I've got to get the two of you to come out in the same year, because watching you experience comics camp together for the first time would give me the kind of joy that as a parent you get when you see a kid experiencing Christmas. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, I'm young again. Watching my two pals experience comic camp, that would be such a joy for me.
You just want somebody to walk to the bathroom with at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I'm so scared. I'm cold and I'm scared and I'm trying not to pee my pants till I get to the outhouse.
You and me and Kevin can walk in there like Dorothy the Tin Man and the Scarecrow walking into the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, if I only had a brain. The ComicLab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton over at theworldrecord.net. And this episode was edited by the ever wonderful Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love ComicLab, and if you're still listening, we know that you do, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts.
Thank you, Brad's mom.
And you may hear your review featured on a future episode. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Spotify. Listen, you folks know how this stuff works. All that stuff makes the algorithm over at Spotify send us out to more and more people we need to get a lot more people listening to this show because everybody that listens becomes part of our community. And as Dave just got done telling you, that comics community is stronger when you get a whole bunch of people together.
You landed that plane. I was wondering where you were going with that sentence, but you landed that.
Every now and again, I make sense.
Yeah. And I'm going to say ComicLab is made possible by your support over at patreon.com/ComicLab. So I will go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/Brad lands the plane. And then, because we're all creative people, we had marble races where you got to pick a marble. But the truly fun part, Brad, was you... God damn, my dog. Hold on. Ollie, stop. Ollie, my love. My cherished boy. My sweetheart. I'm talking to Uncle Brad. Come on now.
I wonder what you're getting in the mail.
I know,
It must be either the mailman or the UPS guy.
Oh, God. We'll just wait.
Does he have different barks for different delivery people?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
If someone, depending on whether they approach the door or not, it gets more menacing. Like this right now is just like, I'm concerned.
Yeah.
They're down at the sidewalk. They're not at the front door yet.
That's amazing that you know this.
In fact, I know what this bark is. There's a dog on a leash that's walking by the house, but stopping and peeing in front of his house. And he's so angry about it. But he's not concerned. He's just registering his, like, I'm upset right now.
Yeah,
that's my
this
bush.
displeases me.
Yeah, this displeases. That's exactly what that is.
Yeah.
Ollie, make better life choices. I'm talking to Brad.